One thing about house sitting is with each new house sit, you kind of have to figure out where things are. Some people leave post-it notes on each drawer and cabinet, but oftentimes you just got to figure it out. So when you're trying to also make a cookbook, well, this can get a little bit tiresome. So for this recipe, we are definitely going to need a bowl, a measuring cup for liquids, and teaspoon measures. Now, this flour is made from water chestnuts. It's often found in your Indian market or Indian grocery store. This recipe I'm making because I'm gluten-free due to my allergies. But if you're not gluten-free, just use some regular flour, not a problem. If you live somewhere where you don't have a local Indian grocery store, not a problem. Just use whatever flour is available to you. The recipe will still work. So here we're using a cup of flour. Now, I decided to go back to the way you're properly supposed to measure things, which is to fill the cup and then level off with a knife. As you can see, I'm not doing the best job of this, but here we go, a cup of flour. Flour of your choice, of course. And now we are going to get some water. I decided to use water from the kettle just because it was the water that was closest to me. You don't have to have warm water or hot water. I will say that this particular flour is a little grainy, so the warm water is definitely not a bad idea. You want to put in a 1/3 to 1/4 cup of water. Now, this particular flour is very thirsty, and so I will be adding more water. Here we're going to have 2 teaspoons of olive oil, and we've added in some salt. Mix things together, and as you can see, my mix is dry. I don't want it to be too wet because I do want this to firm into a ball, but this is way too dry. We just don't have the mix coming together. So here I am getting more water. I think I started with like a 1/4 cup and wound up moving it up to a 1/3 cup. So you're just gonna kind of eye it, keep mixing, add a little water as needed, see if that ball is starting to form. If not, add a little bit more water, and then keep stirring. Now, if the mix gets too soft and too liquidy and too sticky when you touch it, then add a little bit of flour. But this ball is not too bad. I'm adding that leftover little bit of flour that I had from earlier, and I'm making it just a little bit firmer so that way it doesn't stick to my hands. And of course, we can't leave any of our mixture stuck to the spoon. Then I'll give it the old test with my fingers, and it's just about good to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this ball of flour and we are going to go ahead and add some hemp seeds. Now, I probably put in here maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds. You don't have to have hemp seeds, but I decided in the last minute, let's make these fancy. And so I really love crackers that have something in them, whether it's herbs or seeds or spices. I decided to add some hemp seeds because that's what I had available. And it gives it a nice little protein punch. And a little bit more flour in order to make this less sticky. Once you have rolled everything together and your ball is nicely formed, you'll be able to transfer this to your baking sheet. Now, I've made these crackers numerous times in an air fryer. I just use a spoon to scoop the dough. I squish it with my hands, and then I put my little rounds into the air fryer. I am in this beautiful home with this beautiful kitchen, and I'm trying to figure out how to use their beautiful oven. Now I've also got to figure out where to find some baking sheets. I have no clue where they are, but you know me, I'm going to figure it out like I do with everything. If you are using an air fryer, you don't need to use baking sheets. I kind of love the fact that these baking sheets are purple, you guys. This homeowner is so on point. And you will want to line your baking sheet with parchment paper if you have some available. Why? Because then your crackers will not stick and you don't have to coat your pan with any kind of oil. Now, if you don't have parchment paper available, then lightly oil your pan or use some sort of nonstick pan. With that being said, I'm going to use more parchment paper on top because I'm going to roll this out. Again, after using an air fryer, just squish it with your fingers and have a go, right? That's it. You put it in the air fryer, you let it cook, and it's a quick and easy snack that anyone in the family can make. You do not have to be a good cook in order to make this recipe. I am trying to pretend that I am capable of using all of the kitchen gadgets, and I was raised to know how to use a rolling pin. So I don't really know why this rolling pin is giving me some fight here, but you could see I'm actually using my body to keep the baking sheet from sliding off the counter. Now, to be fair, I was also raised to put a little flour on a cutting board and roll it out there. But apparently in my old age, I got a little lazy, and so I rolled it out on the baking sheet, and then I had to fight to keep it from sliding off. As I'm working through this, I'm thinking, I could probably use this similar recipe for a pizza crust, but we're going to keep it moving with these crackers right now. And so just take a serrated knife and just make some little lines. Why? Because once it's baked, you want to be able to easily break these into pieces that others can just grab and they'll feel like, oh, I got these yummy homemade crackers, right? You can definitely take the inner portions, not the misshaped portions, but the inner pieces, and give those as a homemade cracker gift to a friend. And honestly, especially if you're using regular flour, they're not even gonna realize that initially it was some crazy misshapen circle, and they'll just be like, oh my gosh, homemade crackers, you must be a genius. Anyway, I've decided to be extra fancy and to make two different types of crackers. So the first one, we have the hemp seeds. The second version, we are actually going to use some olives. So back to the flour, measuring a cup. This time, I'm allowing myself to be messy. Usually on a house sit, I try not to use a lot of dishes, but because I've already committed to the fact that I'm going to use their dishwasher, I am properly measuring out this flour this time. So here we go. And then we're going to level off nice and smooth. This is a much better measuring journey here. And it goes into the mixing bowl. That extra flour that's in the bottom of the yellow bowl, it's okay because I'm probably going to need that to keep things from getting sticky. Again, add your olive oil, 2 teaspoons. And then we're going to add in a little bit of olives and a little bit of olive juice. So instead of just adding water, I'm going to have water with a little bit of olive juice into it. Now, does it really matter if you use 2 tablespoons or 2 teaspoons of olive oil? Not really. I am just going for something that is a little healthier, so less oil. The oil does help keep things from sticking and helps sticking to your surfaces, and it helps keep the product moist. But you get to decide what works best for you. Now with these olives, we're going to go ahead and we are going to cut them up. But first, we got to get a little of that olive juice. So here we have a third a cup of liquid. And we're going to mix that up. And as you can see, it's looking soupier than my last dish. So I managed to add the right amount of liquid this time. Now this is a little wet, and so we are going to add some flour to it because right now it's a little sticky for my hands, but it's much better. Now we're going to have to add some salt. And what we're also adding is rosemary. So I've taken some rosemary, and I am not using the world's sharpest knife, but that's because I'm also not using a cutting board. But we're gonna chop up some olives. I'm actually using Kalamata olives. That is my preferred olive, but you use whatever kind of olive you like. If you want, you could also add some dried fruit instead of olives. So maybe rosemary and dried apricot or rosemary and dried figs. This is certainly a way to create some gourmet crackers, and if you create 3 different varieties, this really makes a lovely gift. We're going to go ahead and mix this up. Notice that I added the olives after I did most of the mixing because I don't want to crush the olives, and then just a little bit of flour here to make it less sticky for when I pull my ball out of the bowl. And so now this ball that's in a bowl is ready to come on out. Here we are back with another cute purple baking dish. This is like life goals for me. The one thing I'm really loving about my house sitting journey is that I'm able to see how other people are spending their retirement. And I have to say, I had a wonderful time at this house sit. I actually sent a little video clip to a friend of mine, and she said, Ray, you are living in a fairy tale land right now. And that's exactly how I felt. And I think that's what this homeowner had in mind. She wanted to create a magical experience for her life, and she certainly achieved that. So, life goals: before I retire, I want to have a beautiful home with baking dishes that are a cool color. I've noticed a lot of baking items in her home, so it seems like she likes to bake. These pans, though, don't even look like they've ever been used. So I don't know if these pans are new, or maybe she just uses parchment paper for everything and really knows how to take care of her items. So once the dough is rolled out, you get to decide, of course, how thin you want to make your dough. Because I am using this water chestnut flour, it's labeled as Singoda flour in your Indian market. I know that this flour, if it's thick, then my cracker is not going to be very well cooked in the middle, and so I want to roll it out as thin as possible. Of course, we don't want crackers to be breaking on people either. So I think I've done a better job of making this a little bit less round here, and we are cutting it up here in the kitchen in order to have some crackers that are delicious. So if I was giving this to a friend, then the pieces of cracker that are a little less than perfect looking, those are the ones that I would eat myself. Now, I want to put this in the oven, but I can see that the oven racks are not in an ideal position. So let me fix that. And now I've rearranged the oven racks. One thing that you may also find when you're on a house sit is that some people keep their dishes in their oven in terms of baking dishes, so you want to make sure that you pull those out. I found out that the hard way and had to really struggle to find something to pull things out of the oven. So there's our first set of crackers, and our oven temperature was set at 350, I believe. And then we bake those for 12 minutes. And so here we have it, our 2 different types of crackers. We have our hemp seed and sea salt, and then we have our olive and rosemary. They are going to be crunchy. Notice those golden edges. I could have baked these a little bit longer, but I was hungry. And so that is why some of the crackers, you might notice that the center is a little bit browner than ideal. And so I hope you try this recipe. I certainly have fun making this. And if you do try it, let me know. Did you try the water chestnut flour, or did you try a different flour? Let me know in the comments below.